Welcome, my dear travelers, to a realm where gods and mortals collide, where heroes rise and fall, and where the very fabric of existence is woven with tales of wonder and awe. Welcome to 40 Great Stories from Greek Mythology, an odyssey through the timeless narratives that have captivated hearts and minds for centuries. In this audio series, we embark on a journey across the vast expanse of Greek mythology, delving deep into the rich tapestry of legends and lore that have shaped civilizations and sparked imaginations. From the primordial chaos that birthed the cosmos to the heroic exploits of demigods and the machinations of vengeful deities, each story unfolds like a chapter in an epic saga, offering profound insights into the human condition and the mysteries of the divine. Join me as we traverse the rugged landscapes of ancient Greece, where labyrinthine mazes conceal monstrous beasts, where towering titans clash with Olympian gods, and where love and tragedy intertwine in the lives of mortals and immortals alike. From the heights of Mount Olympus to the depths of the underworld, from the shores of distant lands to the bustling streets of legendary cities, our journey will take us to the very heart of Greek mythology. As we embark on this odyssey, prepare to be enthralled by the timeless tales of gods and heroes, monsters and maidens, triumph and tragedy. Let the voices of storytellers past guide you through a realm where imagination knows no bounds and where the legacy of ancient Greece lives on in all its splendor and majesty. Welcome, my friends, to 40 Great Stories from Greek Mythology. A voyage into the realm of myth and legend awaits. Welcome to English Plus Podcast Series, my friends. This is your host, Danny, and this is a premium episode, I know, and the entire episode is available to my premium members on Patreon and to premium subscribers on Apple Podcasts. But that doesn't mean you're not going to listen to anything. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to share any part of this episode. I'm going to share a couple of stories with you. But if you want to listen to the entire episode and all of the other premium episodes that we have, you can become a premium member on Patreon today and join our English Plus family. We promise to bring exciting and useful content to you, and with your support, you'll be helping us continue producing high-quality content that's both educational and fun. If you want to become a premium member on Patreon, the link is in the description of the episode. Now, without further ado, let's start with the very first story of our 40 stories for today. And this story is Chaos to Cosmos, the story of the birth of Titans and the world we know. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever wondered how everything came to be? You know, the mountains, the oceans, the stars twinkling in the night sky, and us, humans, clumsily fumbling around it all? Well, the ancient Greeks had their own wild and wonderful explanation for how this whole messy, beautiful world exploded into existence, and it's got everything you could hope for. Family squabbles, titans with way too many limbs, and a seriously disturbing trend of fathers eating their children. Buckle up, my friends, because we're about to go on a mythic journey. Way back when, before anything existed, the universe was just this big swirling bowl of nothingness called chaos. Think of it like an empty pot, waiting for someone to throw in some ingredients and start cooking up the world. Well, from this primordial soup, out popped Gaia, Mother Earth herself. And let me tell you, my friends, Gaia was a resourceful gal. All on her lonesome, she brought forth Uranus, the starry sky, Pontus, the vast and boundless sea, and the Aurea, those mighty primeval mountains. Now, Gaia and Uranus, well, let's just say they became cosmically cozy. And from their union came a boisterous bunch that would change the universe forever, the Titans. There were 12 Titans in total, 6 brawny brothers, including Oceanus, the deep-dwelling water deity, and Cronus, destined to change, well, pretty much everything. The sisters were the Titanesses, and they too were powerful forces of nature. You had Themis, the goddess of order and law, and Mnemosyne, the personification of memory itself. But here's where things start to get a little gnarly. Uranus wasn't exactly Father of the Year. Turns out, he wasn't a fan of some of his other creations like the monstrous giants and those whirling, swirling cyclops. So he stuffed them right back into Gaia, who, as you can imagine, was less than pleased about being used as an oversized cosmic closet. Understandably upset, Gaia hatched a plan for revenge. She forged a mighty sickle, and the youngest Titan, the wily Kronos, stepped up to do the deed of overthrowing his father. And let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. This act not only freed his monstrous siblings, but it also ushered in a new age, the reign of the mighty Titans with Kronos as their brutal, power-hungry king. But this story's far from over. Remember Kronos? The guy who, violently overthrew his dad? Well, he learns that power corrupts and that prophecy is a fickle mistress. Turns out, there was a whisper of a prediction that one of his own children would rise up and take his throne. So what does Kronos do? Well, the guy starts swallowing his kids whole. Now, talk about dysfunctional families, huh? Well, this, my friends, is where the tale of the Titans, the epic struggle between gods and monstrous beings, truly takes a twist. But how does Zeus, the future king of the gods, escape his father's ravenous appetite? Well, turns out that Zeus's mother, and of course Kronos' wife, Rhea, felt sorry for her children being swallowed by their father whole, so she hatched a plan, just like Gaia did, remember? I mean, when we say history repeats itself, well, that started a long time ago with the Titans and with their descendants, the Olympian gods. Well, Rhea gave Kronos a bundle with a rock inside instead of Zeus, and she smuggled Zeus out of sight, put him on the island of Crete, waiting for him to grow and become the magnificent god he is. And then Zeus came back and freed his brothers and sisters from the very belly of his own father, and he overthrew his father as well. So the prophecy was right. I mean, Kronos, yes, he was brutal, but he was right about it. One of his sons was going to overthrow him, and that's exactly what happened. Now, of course, I'm not going to be telling you all the details of the stories that came after and came before, because we only have 40 stories and there are hundreds of stories in Greek mythology. I'm not going to be doing this in a chronological order. Instead of that, I tried to pick the best or even most beautiful stories I could find in Greek mythology. So, my friends, that is the cosmogony, or the beginning of the world according to Greek mythology, the birth of the Titans and the world we know. That's not the end of it, that's just the first story. We still have a lot of stories to share in this episode, so don't go anywhere, because next, we're going to be talking about one of the most famous heroes of all time, Hercules himself. So don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Do you think you know everything about heroes? Those shiny armored figures who always win in the end? Well, the ancient Greeks had a different idea when it came to heroism, and they embodied it in a seriously flawed, massively muscled demigod named Hercules. Yes, the same guy from the Disney movie, but let's ditch the singing muses and dive into the real deal. Because trust me, this is way more twisted and way more intriguing. Hercules, born with godlike strength thanks to his father Zeus, who had a bit of a wandering eye, let's admit, and that was one of the reasons why Hercules was never meant to have an easy life. Hera, Zeus's not-so-happy wife, did everything she could to make Hercules miserable. Some claim she even sent snakes into his crib when he was a baby. Talk about a grudge, right? Yet, as Hercules grew, his legendary strength became the stuff of, well, legends. He could strangle lions, battle giants, and wrestle with river gods for fun. Sounds like your typical superhero, doesn't it? But here's the twist. Hercules wasn't exactly a paragon of virtue. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, well, possibly sent by you-know-who, he tragically killed his own wife and children. Not the golden boy resume he was hoping for. This monstrous act set Hercules on his most legendary quest, the 12 Labors. Imagine them like 12 of the hardest video game levels ever designed, but with real monsters, no cheat codes, and your life hanging in the balance. He had to strangle a lion that couldn't be harmed by weapons, clean 1,000 stables in a day, ew, outsmart a herd of flesh-eating horses, and the list goes on. These weren't your typical fetch quests. So why did Hercules do it? Was he truly remorseful for his crimes, or was this an elaborate cosmic punishment deal? Did this troubled hero actually find redemption through all his monster wrangling and impossible tasks? Or was Hera actually the mastermind behind his fame, using him to clean up her messy problems with the supernatural world? Hercules is a fascinating figure precisely because there's no easy answer. He's both strong and flawed, a relentless brute with a strangely vulnerable center. His story is a reminder that even the myths we think we know still have the power to surprise us, leaving us wondering about the nature of heroism, forgiveness, and the enduring fascination we have with stories about larger-than-life figures. So my friends, that's what I have to say about Hercules. Now, you might be wondering by this point, well, why don't you tell us the entire story in details? Well, if I want to tell you the story of Hercules, and if I want to detail the 12 labors and everything that happened after that and everything that happened before that, for example, what happened when Hera sent him the snakes to his crib, and all of that you remember very well from the many movies made about Hercules, well, we will have to dedicate the entire episode for that. And remember, the episode is 40 great stories from Greek mythology. So we're going to touch the heart of the stories, but we can't list every single detail. But that doesn't mean that I can't do that later. If you want me to dig deeper in any of those stories that you're going to listen to today, please, by all means, send me a request. You can send your requests to ask@englishpluspodcast.com, and I promise you, if I have enough requests for any of those stories, I will dedicate an entire episode talking only about this story, all right? But that's it about Hercules in today's episode. Next, we're going to talk about another very famous hero, Odysseus. Was he a mastermind or cosmic plaything? Let's figure that out together, so don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Ever get stuck in traffic and think, man, this commute is an odyssey? Buckle up, because today we're talking about the original epic journey, the king of all bad road trips, the Odyssey. Odysseus, the hero who helped win the Trojan War with his legendary trickery of the Trojan horse, just wanted to get back home to his comfy throne and his loyal wife Penelope. But the gods had other plans, turning this guy's homecoming into a 10-year marathon filled with more monsters, close calls, and bad decisions than you can shake a Cyclops club at. Well, let's be honest. Sometimes Odysseus' biggest enemy seems to be himself. We're talking about a guy who angers the sea god Poseidon, gets trapped by a lovesick nymph on a magical island for years, and ends up shipwrecked because he and his crew just couldn't resist poking a sleeping Cyclops in the eye. Seriously, guys, just leave the giant alone. But here's where things get juicy. Is Odysseus just really unlucky, or is he kind of a hot mess with a knack for landing himself in trouble? His clever plans often backfire, leaving everyone in even more danger. Sure, he's the master of disguise and quick thinking, but his pride and recklessness always seem to catch up with him. Through it all, back in Ithaca, his wife Penelope remains the picture of loyalty, fending off pushy suitors who think Odysseus is gone for good. But even here, there's intrigue. Was Penelope truly a helpless victim waiting to be rescued, or was she cleverly playing her own game to buy time and protect her kingdom? Odysseus, after facing down sorceresses, sea monsters, and the temptation of paradise, finally makes it home. A battle-scarred, much older man disguised as a beggar. But even his homecoming isn't simple. He has to prove his identity and take back his throne in a bloody showdown. So here's the question. Is the Odyssey a tale of resilience and perseverance against all odds? Or is it a cautionary tale about how even the cleverest among us can be undone by our own flaws? Is Odysseus a tragic hero, a victim of circumstance, or the architect of his own tangled journey? And what does his story tell us about loyalty, cunning, and the sometimes absurd lengths we go to just find our way home? As I told you earlier, if you want a more in-depth story, and if you want me to talk in detail about all the adventures or misfortunes Odysseus has had on his way back to Ithaca, of course I can do that. All you have to do is ask. But next, we're going to talk about a person who was actually with Odysseus in the Trojan War, and he is another tragic hero, but he was famous for his rage, his wrath. We're talking about Achilles. That's what we're going to talk about next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Ever had one of those days when you want to scream? kick some furniture and start an all-out brawl just because? Well, buckle up, because today we're talking about the original bad-tempered hero himself, Achilles. This Greek demigod, star of the Iliad, is famous for his incredible fighting skills and his supersized raged issues. The setting? The Trojan War. Remember the story of the Trojan horse? The huge war sparked by a runaway queen? Well, yeah, that's the one. Achilles, a warrior prince fueled by a thirst for glory, is prophesied to be the Greeks' weapon to win this war, well, if his temper doesn't get in the way. But here's the twist. The war isn't going smoothly for the Greeks, and Achilles' best buddy Patroclus gets killed in the fighting. And that's when Achilles completely loses it. Fueled by grief and a thirst for vengeance, he returns to the battlefield, a whirlwind of destruction, making the Trojans regret they ever looked at him funny. His rage is so epic there are moments you almost cheer him on, even when his brutality starts to make you squirm. But this is where the story of Achilles gets really interesting. He's not just a muscle-bound killing machine. He's torn between his desire for undying glory and the knowledge that his fame will come with a heavy price: his death. Achilles knows he has a choice: live a long, unremarkable life, or die young and be remembered forever as a legend. Now, the Iliad isn't only about Achilles and his tantrums. It's a sprawling tale of heroes, flawed kings, and the gods themselves stirring the pot. You have Hector, valiant defender of Troy, forced into an impossible duel. You have clever Odysseus coming up with the ultimate battle trick. And amidst all the chaos are moments of humanity, heartbreak, and glimpses into a world where honor and fate were everything. So what makes Achilles and the story of the Iliad so fascinating? Is it the thrill of a good battle, dripping with blood and bravery? Or is it the timeless struggle of a man raging against fate itself? Does a thirst for glory excuse a hero's destructive path? And ultimately, is the price of being remembered forever worth paying? Well, think about that as you tuck yourself in tonight and maybe dream of battles a little less bloody and heroes a little less flawed. That was about Achilles, my friends. And next, we're going to talk about another story. We're going to talk about another very famous figure from Greek mythology, Pandora. And we're going to talk about Pandora's box. Curiosity killed the cat, remember? And it seems not only the cat, the rest of us too. Stick around because that's what we're going to talk about next. I'll be right back. Have you ever been told not to do something and it just made you want to do it even more? Well, meet Pandora, the original rule breaker of Greek mythology. This curious woman unleashed an epic amount of trouble into the world, and yeah, some of us might still be dealing with the consequences. Now picture this. Humanity was going along just fine. Then the gods got bored. Zeus, king of the gods, decides to cook up a little chaos, create a beautiful woman, mold her from clay, and have each god gift her something a little special. We're talking charm, grace, musical talent, and maybe just a tiny bit of recklessness and deceit. This is Pandora, the first woman. Now, the gods aren't known for their generosity, so they also send this unsuspecting woman with a gift, a mysterious box. Or was it a jar? I don't know. Mistranslations can be messy. But anyway, let's stick to the box. So they sent her with this mysterious box, but there's a catch. Under no circumstances is she to open it. Temptation is, well, tempting, right? Pandora's box is the go-to explanation for why bad stuff happens. It's almost comforting in a way, isn't it? Having a reason for pain is easier than just facing the harsh reality that life can be random and unfair. But here's where things get juicy. Was this all a punishment from the gods? Were they simply bored and felt like toying with mortals? Did Pandora truly bring about the world's suffering, or was that inevitable anyway? Is hope enough to counter all that darkness, or is it just a pretty illusion? And now, here's the question to wrestle with. Do you open your own Pandora's boxes in life, taking risks with unknown consequences, chasing forbidden knowledge, giving in to temptation? And is it the hope waiting at the bottom that makes these risky ventures worthwhile? Well, Think about it, my friends, and let me know what you think in the comments. And that, my friends, was about Pandora. Next, we're going to talk about another remarkable woman from Greek mythology. This time, we're talking about Persephone. Well, she's a goddess, obviously, but she's a woman after all, the underworld queen and the origin of spring. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever wondered why the flowers bloom so brightly after a long winter, or why the leaves turn those fiery shades of red and gold in the fall? Well, the ancient Greeks had an answer for that. A story of love, loss, angry goddesses, and a deal with the devil, or rather with the god of the underworld. Let's meet Persephone, an innocent young maiden, carefree daughter of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture. Think of Persephone as a personification of springtime, youthful, vibrant, all wild flowers and sunshine. Then along comes Hades, brooding god of the underworld. He spots Persephone and boom! It's like those cheesy romance novels with their brooding guys and spirited girls. He's instantly obsessed with her. But Hades doesn't exactly do courtship. More like kidnapping. Yeah. He swoops her into his chariot and drags her down to his gloomy kingdom for a not-so-romantic getaway. And you can obviously imagine how that went with her mom. Well, not very well. Demeter, distraught beyond words, throws the world into turmoil. She lets the harvests wither and plunges the earth into an endless, miserable winter. It's like if Mother Nature decided to take a permanent vacation and leave us all shivering and sad. Things get so bad that Zeus, the head honcho of Olympus, has to step in. Let's face it, an eternal winter is a serious buzzkill, right? Even for the gods. So, a deal is struck. Persephone will return to her mother for part of the year, and the land will flourish with life and warmth again. Well, this is where we get spring and summer. But when she returns to Hades in the underworld, well, that's when Demeter mourns and the world grows a little colder. The leaves change, and we hunker down for fall and winter. Now here's the fun part. Persephone's tale isn't just about seasons. It's also about the cycles of life and death, about love that binds us even to dark places. Was Persephone truly a victim, or did she find power and purpose in the underworld? Maybe she's a bit of both, the maiden who blossomed into a queen even in a realm of shadows. So the next time you feel that first warm breeze of spring or admire the fiery leaves against an autumn sky, remember the tale of Persephone. Maybe you'll appreciate those moments of life all the more, knowing that they come with a promise of rest, renewal, and rebirth, just like the seasons. So that was about Persephone, and I know you're going to say that you're missing out on some details like the pomegranate and that she actually ate 7 seeds and all that stuff. I know that if you want to list all the details, it's going to be very long, and we have a lot of stories. So that's my take. You might like it, you might not like it. Please let me know if you don't like it and if you want me just to tell you the stories. And not the stories with comments on the stories and, digging in a little deep as we usually do in English Plus. But anyway, that's my take about Persephone, the queen of the underworld. And next, we're going to talk about Theseus, the Minotaur, and a ball of twine. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever felt completely lost, trapped in a situation that seems inescapable? Well, meet Theseus, Athenian prince and certified monster slayer who stepped into a real-life nightmare to face the dreaded Minotaur. Imagine the fear of walking into a twisting maze, knowing that somewhere inside, a monstrous half-bull, half-man creature lurks, hungry and waiting. Now that's a Monday morning mood killer, wouldn't you say? Well, let's set the scene. King Minos of Crete has a bit of a problem. A raging, flesh-eating monster for a stepson. Yeah, awkward family dinners for sure. Well, this Minotaur gets locked up in a gigantic winding labyrinth, designed so cunningly that no one can escape. Worse yet, every so often, Minos demands a gruesome sacrifice. A group of Athenian youths gets sent in as Minotaur munchies. Not the greatest tribute system, right? Well, this is where Theseus steps in. Fueled by justice and maybe a touch of that youthful hero swagger, he volunteers to be one of the sacrifices, sailing to Crete with a plan. and a little help from clever Princess Ariadne. She gives him the key to navigating the maze, a simple ball of twine. It's the ancient Greek equivalent of leaving a trail of digital breadcrumbs so you can find your way back. Theseus, bless his brave heart, enters the labyrinth, twine in hand, venturing deeper and deeper into darkness. The tension builds. You can almost hear the Minotaur snorts, the scrapes of its hooves against the stone. When Theseus and the monster finally clash, it's a brutal, desperate fight, man versus myth, cunning versus sheer brute force. But Theseus emerges victorious, following the thread back to daylight and freedom. He's a hero, a slayer of beasts, destined to be king. But here's where things get messy, as they always do with Greek mythology. There's broken promises, a heartbroken princess, and Theseus forgetting to change his ship's sails, causing a tragedy that will haunt him forever. So, what's the lesson here? Is it about trusting your gut and facing challenges head-on, even when the odds seem stacked against you? Is it a reminder that even the most thrilling victory can have unforeseen consequences? Or is this story about the tangled threads of our lives where bravery and good intentions can still lead to heartbreak? You decide. And maybe the next time you feel lost, remember Theseus and his ball of string. Sometimes the escape is simpler than you think, one step, then another, until you find your way back into the light. And with that, my friends, we're done about Theseus and the Minotaur, and next we're going to talk about Jason and the Argonauts, the ultimate squad goal misadventure. That's coming next, don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Ever wish you could get all your most talented, adventurous friends together for an incredible quest? Well, meet Jason, the original squad leader who rounded up a crew of mythic heavy hitters to sail with him on an epic treasure hunt. We're talking about the famed quest for the Golden Fleece, a shimmering relic with a seriously messy backstory. See, Jason had a problem. His power-hungry uncle stole his rightful place as king, and as you can imagine, Jason wasn't happy about it. Dude sends Jason off on a supposedly impossible mission to fetch the fleece, hoping our hero will get himself conveniently killed. Think of it as the ancient Greek version of your boss sending you on a wild goose chase they secretly hope you'll fail spectacularly at. But here's the twist. Jason doesn't go alone. He builds his very own ship, the Argo naturally, and recruits the ultimate dream team of ancient superstars. Hercules with those rippling biceps, Orpheus the bard whose music could charm the most furious beast, and Atalanta, the swift-footed huntress who could easily outmaneuver any man. Their journey is the stuff of legend, a roller coaster ride filled with clashing rocks, flying harpies, singing sirens, and some serious island hopping gone wrong. There's betrayal, battles, a fire-breathing dragon guarding the fleece. Honestly, it's got everything you want in a blockbuster movie with way more togas and way less special effects. Jason finally gets the fleece with a mix of bravery and the considerable help of Medea, a sorceress who falls head over heels in love, or maybe it's obsession. But anyway, he comes home a hero. But the Greek myths aren't known for their happily ever afters. There's blood, vengeance, and a whole lot of regret waiting on the shore. So is Jason and the Argonauts the story of a grand achievement against all odds? A cautionary tale about the price of ambition and the sacrifices made along the way? Or is it about the intoxicating power of gathering your best and brightest, setting an impossible goal, and seeing just how far you can go together? Maybe it's all of that and then some. After all, a good adventure story is just like that golden fleece, glittering with promises, tempting us to chase it, even as the dangers and dark consequences loom just beneath that shimmering surface. And so, my friends, that's the story of Jason and the Argonauts, and next we're going to talk about Oedipus Rex, and whether you can ever outturn your fate. That's coming next, don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Have you ever had one of those nightmares where you know something terrible is going to happen, and you desperately try to stop it, but instead you end up making it all come true? Yeah, that's basically the story of Oedipus on a cosmic gut-wrenching scale. Oedipus, the prince of Thebes, Seems like a stand-up guy. He's smart, he's brave, he solves a riddle to save an entire city from the monstrous Sphinx, but there's a prophecy hanging over his head. A dark whisper that predicts he'll kill his father and marry his mother. Now talk about a seriously awkward family reunion. Determined to outsmart fate, Oedipus flees his home, Corinth, thinking he's putting distance between himself and the horrifying prophecy. But little does he know, he's running right into it. Along the way, he ends up in a road rage incident. Well, you'd think gods and heroes would have better impulse control. And in this road rage, he kills an old man who turns out to be his real father. See where this is going? Oedipus arrives in Thebes, a hero who saved them from a monster. The recently widowed queen, Jocasta, is smitten. You can guess the rest. Yes, Oedipus marries his mother. Now talk about a honeymoon from hell. Years go by before the grim truth unravels. Piece by agonizing piece. Realizations dawn in a sickening cascade of despair and horror. Jocasta can't live with the shame and takes her own life. Oedipus, in the depths of his despair, gauges out his own eyes in a desperate act of penance. So, what are we supposed to take away from this? Was Oedipus doomed from the start? A plaything of cruel gods who set an inescapable trap? Or does his choices matter, even in the face of those grim prophecies? The story haunts us because it raises the question, is free will an illusion? Are we simply tangled puppets in a play set in motion by forces beyond our control? The tragedy of Oedipus lingers with us, a chilling reminder that sometimes the hardest battles we face are not with monsters or armies, but with the dark corners of our own destinies. So my friends, that was about the tragic story of Oedipus. Next, we're going to talk about the boy who flew too close to the sun. We're going to talk about Icarus and whether he was reckless or brave. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever been warned against reaching too high, aiming too far, lest you risk falling hard? You remember that, right? Well, that pretty much sums up the story of Icarus, the boy whose dreams literally melted before his own eyes. But is it just a warning about the perils of ambition, or is there more to this classic tale than meets the eye? You likely know the basic story. Daedalus, a brilliant inventor, and his son Icarus are trapped on an island. Daedalus, always the resourceful one, crafts wings from feathers and wax, their ticket to freedom. Before they embark, Daedalus wisely warns his son, don't fly too close to the sun, or the wax will melt. Don't fly too low, or the sea spray will ruin the wings. But Icarus, well, is young, daring, and maybe a touch too full of himself. The exhilaration of flight is intoxicating. As they soar into the sky, he forgets his father's warning. The sun beats down, the wax softens, and feathers flutter away like tears. Suddenly, Icarus is plummeting towards the sea, a figure of both foolish recklessness and the untamed spirit of youth. The tale of Icarus is a universal one. It's etched into our language. We warn each other against flying too close to the sun. It's about the consequences of hubris, sure, but isn't there a glimmer of something else as well? Is Icarus the embodiment of youthful ambition, reaching for the stars even if it means getting burned? Is it about the tension between caution and daring, the fine line between reaching new heights and the inevitable crash when we push ourselves too far? The fall of Icarus, at its heart, is perhaps a story about balance, about knowing your limits yet still daring to dream big. Because isn't some risk necessary for truly extraordinary achievements? And even in failing spectacularly, is there something beautiful in reaching for that dazzling light, even just for a moment? Well, let's think on that one. Maybe, just maybe, the tale of Icarus isn't meant to quash our ambition, but simply to help us fly a little smarter next time. Well, let me know what you think. And next, we're moving from Icarus's flight to Arachne's spinning. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Ever had that feeling where you're so good at something you could maybe, possibly, get a little cocky about it? Well, meet Arachne, the most gifted weaver in all of ancient Greece. This wasn't your grandma knitting cute scarves. This girl spun tapestries so lifelike they seemed to breathe. Her fame spread far and wide, and with it came a touch of arrogance. You see, Arachne started boasting that her weaving skills were even better than Athena's. Athena, goddess of wisdom, crafts, and let's face it, a healthy dose of pride. Bad-mouthing a goddess, well, not exactly a smart move. But being a deity, Athena decides to give Arachne a chance to redeem herself. Well, sort of. Disguised as an old woman, Athena visits Arachne, offering sage advice and a chance to backtrack on her bragging. Arachne, blinded by hubris, doubles down and challenges the goddess to a weaving duel. This is where things get really juicy. The contest begins, and let me tell you, my friends, these ladies spin up a storm. Athena creates a tapestry glorifying the gods and all their power, reminding mortals to keep their place. Pretty standard godly flex, if you ask me. But Arachne, well, she's not impressed. Arachne's tapestry is a masterpiece, yes, but it's also a scathing portrayal of the gods and their, shall we say, less than shining moments. Those heavenly beings cheating, lying, and generally behaving badly, all laid bare in vibrant threads. Technically brilliant, but also massively disrespectful. As you can imagine, Athena is not amused. Tearing up Arachne's rebellious masterpiece and shattering her loom, her divine fury boils over. Poor Arachne, struck with remorse, attempts to take her own life. In a twisted act of mercy, or is it petty revenge, Athena transforms her into a spider, forever cursed to weave intricate webs for all eternity. So, is this story simply about punishing human arrogance when it dares challenge the divine order? Or is there another layer? Is Arachne a reminder of the extraordinary talents residing within ordinary mortals? Can even the gods feel threatened by those who can create beauty to rival their own? And ultimately, is this transformation a cruel punishment or perhaps a strange kind of liberation? After all, what is a spider but the ultimate weaver? Free to create its delicate masterpieces, beholden to no one. Think about that next time you swat away a cobweb. There might be more to that little 8-legged creature than meets the eye. And so, my friends, that's about Arachne and her fate. Next, we're going to talk about Echo and Narcissus, the tragic tale of Echo and Narcissus. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Have you ever loved someone who seemed completely incapable of loving you back? Or maybe obsessed with someone who only saw their own needs? Well, the ancient Greeks took these very modern heartbreaks and turned them into a myth of haunting beauty and tragic downfall. The tale of Echo and Narcissus. Echo was a nymph, a joyful forest spirit known for her vibrant voice and love of conversation. But she had a bad habit of running her mouth at the wrong time. One day she distracts Hera, goddess of marriage, and queen of holding grudges of course, with her chatter while Zeus, Hera's hubby, is off philandering. Angry Hera curses Echo. She can now only repeat the last words spoken to her, forever robbed of expressing her own thoughts. Meanwhile, there's Narcissus, a hunter renowned for his astonishing looks. Well, this guy was so handsome he could make Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty herself, a little twitchy with envy. But with all that beauty came an inflated ego. He disdains all who admire him, caring for no one but himself. One day, Echo sees Narcissus in the woods, and she's instantly smitten. But their meet cute is doomed from the start by her curse. She can only repeat his own words, leading to a conversation that's both frustrating and kind of heartbreaking. Narcissus grows annoyed, cruelly rejects her, and leaves Echo with a broken heart that silently aches within her. Now remember Nemesis, the goddess of revenge and getting people their comeuppance? Well, she's been watching this whole mess, and she decides it's time for a little divine intervention. Narcissus is led to a pool of water where he catches sight of his own reflection, and boom! Instantly obsessed. Unable to break his gaze, he withers away, leaving only the Narcissus flower in his place. Echo, fading with grief and unable to speak of her own pain, wastes away until only her echoing voice remains. It's a story of unrequited love, destructive obsession, and the echoes of heartbreak that can linger long after the players are gone. So here's the question. What does this myth tell us about the nature of love? Is it about the dangers of vanity and self-absorption? Is Echo forever a victim, or does the power of her enduring voice hold a different kind of strength? And maybe, when you see your own reflection, look a little deeper. What kind of love resides within you? Well, let me know what you think in the comments, my friends. Because next, we're going to talk about another love story, another tragic love story, but in a different way. The story of Orpheus and Eurydice. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever loved someone so fiercely you'd march into the jaws of death itself to bring them back? Well, that's Orpheus for you. Gifted musician, devoted husband, and the original won't take no for an answer romantic. His tale with his beloved Eurydice is the ultimate story of love battling against the final curtain. Orpheus, you see, wasn't just some guy with a guitar. His music could move mountains, charm monsters, make the very trees weep. His and Eurydice's love was the stuff of epic poems, a whirlwind romance, and a life they thought would stretch out forever. But tragedy, that jealous mistress, strikes. A venomous snake bites Eurydice, and just like that, she's gone, whisked away to the land of shades, the underworld. Orpheus is utterly devastated, but love, especially desperate love, does strange and bold things to a person. Instead of succumbing to grief, Orpheus does the unthinkable. Armed only with his lyre and a heart full of reckless hope, he descends into the underworld, realm of Hades, the grim god who's not exactly known for his compassion. Orpheus charms his way past Cerberus, the three-headed hellhound, and even soothes the tormented spirits with his music. Finally, he stands before Hades and Persephone, the gloomy king and queen of the underworld. Orpheus pours his heart out, singing of his unbearable loss and undying love. And get this, it works. Hades, moved by something resembling pity, agrees to release Eurydice on one condition. Orpheus must not look back at her until they've both reached the light of the upper world. They begin their arduous climb, Orpheus walking ahead, listening for the sound of Eurydice's footsteps behind him. But doubt, that insidious worm, starts to gnaw at him. Is she really there? Have the gods played a cruel trick? Just a few steps from the exit, Orpheus can't take it anymore. He turns and loses Eurydice forever. Well, this myth haunts us because it is so achingly human. Would you risk everything for the one you love, even the wrath of the gods? Is it better to blindly trust or give in to that sliver of doubt that can shatter your whole world? And when faced with the impossible, do we dare to hope, even when it feels like all is lost? Well, let me know what you think, my friends. And that was the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. And next, we're gonna talk about the real hero, and maybe, just maybe, the only god who truly loved humans. We're going to talk about Prometheus, the firebringer, the rebel, the hero, or maybe the foolish thief. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Imagine a world without fire. No cozy campfires under the stars, no sparks to ignite industry, no flickering flames to warm our homes. Well, according to the Greeks, we have Prometheus to thank for this life-altering gift. He boldly stole fire from the gods, changing humankind forever, and paying a heavy price for his defiance. Prometheus was a titan, part of the elder generation of gods, later overthrown by Zeus and his Olympian crew. But unlike his kin, Prometheus cared about those fragile, struggling creatures called humans. He saw us shivering in the dark, at the mercy of nature, and his heart, or whatever a titan has instead, ached with pity. So Prometheus hatches a plan. Sneaking onto Mount Olympus, home of the gods, he steals a burning ember from the sacred hearth, hiding it inside a fennel stalk. Triumphantly, he brings fire down to humanity, a gift that changes everything. Humans can cook their food, forge tools, light their way, and spark the birth of civilization itself. But you don't mess with Zeus and walk away unscathed. The king of the gods is furious at this cosmic act of theft and sees it as a dangerous threat to the established order. Prometheus's punishment is legendary. Chained to a rock, an eagle descends each day to devour his liver, which regenerates each night. Well, imagine that as your Monday morning routine. But here's where the myth gets juicy. Was Prometheus a rebellious hero, championing mankind against the uncaring gods? Or was he reckless, giving us a gift we weren't ready for? After all, fire has just as much power to destroy as it does to create. The myth of Prometheus haunts us because it reflects our own complicated relationships with knowledge and power. Do the potential benefits justify the risks of discovery and disobedience? Is it worth suffering the consequences to uplift others or break an unjust system? And hey, maybe next time you roast marshmallows over a fire, spare a thought for the Titan who paid dearly to spark that flame and the endless debate his actions inspired. And that, my friends, was our story about Prometheus, the Firebringer. And next, we're going to talk about golden apples and bad decisions and how Paris sparked the Trojan War. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever made a choice that had disastrous, epic-level consequences? Well, spare a thought for Paris, the Trojan prince whose terrible judgment skills kicked off one of the most legendary wars in myth, all over a sparkly piece of fruit. Yeah, you heard that right. The story starts with a wedding party you really don't want to miss. Peleus and Thetis, a sea nymph, are getting hitched. Everyone who's anyone in the divine social circle is on the guest list. Everyone except Eris, goddess of discord and the ultimate party crasher. Naturally, she's majorly offended. Seething with spite, Eris tosses a golden apple into the festivities. On it is a simple inscription, "To the fairest." Naturally, chaos erupts. Three of the most powerful and prideful goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, each believe that shiny apple is meant for them. Imagine the side eye, the hair flipping, the passive-aggressive comments. Zeus, wisely wanting to avoid getting caught in the middle of this divine beauty pageant, hands the mess off to Paris, a handsome but not particularly bright Trojan prince. Each goddess pulls out all the stops, offering juicy bribes. Hera promises him power to rule the world. Athena offers wisdom and victory in battle, and Aphrodite, well, she promises him the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris, bless his foolish heart, picks Aphrodite. Bad idea, dude. Really bad idea. See, the most beautiful woman in the world is Helen, married to King Menelaus of Sparta. Aphrodite helps Paris whisk Helen away to Troy, and bam! You've got yourself the Trojan War, a 10-year bloody conflict that brings heroes, armies, and trickery on a massive scale. Was Paris swayed by true love or seduced by lust? Did the goddesses truly give him a chance, or was his fate sealed by their meddling? And how much devastation can one bad decision truly unleash on the world? Maybe the next time you have a tough choice to make, just remember Paris and that gleaming apple. Sometimes the shiniest option isn't always the wisest. So, that was our story of the golden apple and the judgment of Paris. And next, we're going to talk about another hero, Perseus, who you might have seen in Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans. From humble hero to Gorgon Slayer, that's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Ever feel like life throws impossible tasks at you? Think your boss, in-laws, Monday morning traffic are scary? Well, these problems pale compared to Perseus, the demigod who spent most of his life dodging angry gods, petrifying monsters, and some seriously dysfunctional family drama. Perseus' story begins with a prophecy. Well, don't they always? Anyway, his grandfather, a king terrified of that prophecy, tries to get rid of Perseus and his mother by locking them in a chest and tossing them into the sea. We'll talk about toxic family dynamics, but they survive, wash ashore, and Perseus grows up with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove. Then one day, a sleazy king sets his sights on Perseus' mom. To get this guy off his back, Perseus foolishly boasts he could bring back the head of Medusa, a monstrous gorgon whose gaze turns men to stone. See where this is going? Well, now the gods don't just sit back watching mortals get themselves into impossible scrapes. Athena, with a grudge against Medusa, lends Perseus a shining shield. Hermes gives him winged sandals, and the nymphs toss in an invisibility cap. The heroes got more magical gadgets than a demigod James Bond. Perseus finds Medusa, using his shield as a mirror so he can avoid her petrifying gaze. With a single stroke of his sword, he lops off her head, but the adventure is far from over. From her blood springs Pegasus, the winged horse. Perseus, the sheepskin bag holding Medusa's head tucked under his arm, hops on and zooms off. He uses that Gorgon head like a creepy weapon, saving a princess from a sea monster, turning an army to stone, and rescuing his mom from that sleazy king. But with power like that, there are unintended consequences. He accidentally turns his grandfather to stone, fulfilling that pesky prophecy after all. Perseus' tale is a wild ride of courage, luck, and the mixed blessing of divine intervention. Is his success all his own, or is he just a pawn the gods used for their own ends? Can even the most monstrous obstacles be overcome with the right tools and some divine backing? And hey, the next time you think you're having a bad day, spare a thought for Perseus. At least you don't have to worry about accidentally turning your relatives into lawn ornaments. Well, keep that in mind and let me know what you think. And that, my friends, was about Perseus, the Gorgon Slayer, the Medusa Slayer. Next, we're gonna talk about Bellerophon, the Sky Tamer and Chimera Slayer. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Have you ever wondered what it might feel like to ride the wind itself? To soar among the clouds and leave your troubles impossibly far below? If so, then you're in for a treat today, because we're diving into the legend of Bellerophon, a hero with dreams that touch the heavens themselves. Bellerophon wasn't always a sky warrior. In fact, he had a pretty unfortunate start in life. You see, he was entangled in some messy soap opera-style drama involving his host's wife and false accusations. The outcome, well, not great for him. Bellerophon was promptly exiled, but that's actually where it gets interesting. He found himself thrown into an adventure worthy of any legend, taming the impossible, battling the monstrous, and, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. His first trial? Well, let's just say if you thought trying to tame a wild horse was tough, imagine one with wings. Enter Pegasus, a magnificent creature born from the most chaotic and unexpected of circumstances. Pegasus represented pure, untamed power, a force of nature with wings. Yet somehow, Bellerophon saw in Pegasus not just a challenge, but a way to rise above, literally. The legend says that Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, lent a helping hand. A golden bridle, a symbol of both control and understanding, was the key to approaching Pegasus. With this tool, Bellerophon wasn't about brute force, he needed strategy, respect, and a touch of finesse. When he finally harnessed the winged horse, it wasn't just a feat of strength, it was the start of a beautiful partnership. Now, this dynamic duo was ready for a truly epic quest, battling the dreaded Chimera. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill monster. It was a bizarre mishmash of lion, goat, and serpent, with a nasty habit of breathing fire. Now, this is where flying came in handy. While the Chimera raged below, Bellerophon and Pegasus found their advantage in the air, raining down attacks and evading those fiery blasts. But here's the twist. Brute force alone wouldn't cut it. Bellerophon thought creatively. He used molten lead attached to his spear like a sort of ancient missile. With one well-aimed, scorching throw, he sealed the Chimera's fate. It was the perfect display of Bellerophon's growth, bravery, yes, but also cunning and the ability to use the unique power he'd been gifted. His life, like many Greek myths, doesn't have a fairy tale ending. Some say Bellerophon, after his victory, got a bit too confident. He thought himself worthy to sit among the gods on Olympus itself. Zeus and Pegasus weren't so impressed. He was cast down, his ambition outweighing his wisdom. So here's something to ponder. Does Bellerophon's story tell us that the sky's the limit? Or is it a warning about the dangers of reaching too high? Well, let me know what you think. And next, my friends, we're going to talk about the House of Atreus, a blood-soaked legacy. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Have you ever heard the phrase dysfunctional family and thought, well, at least it's not that bad? Well, trust me, you haven't seen anything like the House of Atreus. We're talking about a family so tangled with betrayal, murder, and vengeance, it makes your weird uncle's Thanksgiving rants look downright pleasant. Well, the curse all started with a dude named Tantalus, a king, son of Zeus, the whole 9 yards. He should have had it made, right? Well, wrong. Tantalus had this nasty habit of testing the gods' patience. His grand finale, let's just say it involved a really disturbing dinner party and leave it at that. Suffice it to say, he made them angry. And let's be real, you never want to make the gods angry. Now, remember how I said this was a family curse? Well, unfortunately for Tantalus, his descendants inherited all the drama. Think of it like that hand-me-down sweater from your great aunt. It fits a bit weird, and you're not sure why you have it. Well, let's focus on Tantalus' grandsons, Atreus and Thyestes, a pair of brothers engaged in a rivalry so intense it would make reality TV producers weep with greedy joy. These brothers, fueled by ambition, jealousy, and questionable morals, went to war with each other. Well, less war and more horrific acts of revenge best not described on a family-friendly podcast. With banquets involving unwitting cannibalism, affairs with your brother's wife, and, because this just wasn't twisted enough, children being raised by their biological father without even knowing it. And let's not forget Agamemnon, Atreus' son, a Trojan war fame. Sure, he was a hero and all, but talk about messy home life. Turns out coming back from war isn't all sunshine and rainbows when your wife's been plotting your murder with your cousin. Yep, Clytemnestra took a page right out of the Atreus family playbook. However, if you think the story ends there, oh boy, you're in for a surprise. Agamemnon and Clytemnestra's son Orestes was basically born into this legacy of vengeance. He ended up avenging his father by killing his own mother, but that's where things get extra crazy. The Furies, those not-so-friendly spirits of justice, start tormenting him for his crime. In the end, Orestes found some form of redemption, potentially breaking the curse of his family. But here's the kicker. Was this cycle of vengeance ever truly justified? Is there ever an excuse for the horrific acts committed by the House of Atreus? Or were they doomed from the start because of their ancestors' mistake? Well, think about it and maybe check on your family tree. Just in case. And that was, my friends, the curse of the House of Atreus. Next, we're gonna talk about Sisyphus, the rock-rolling rebel. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Ever had one of those days where you feel like you're getting nowhere? Like your to-do list is out to destroy you, and no matter how hard you work, things just keep slipping back downhill? Well, buckle up, because I've got the ultimate poster child for that feeling. Meet Sisyphus, the poor guy who makes Monday morning traffic look like a relaxing spa day. Sisyphus, bless his heart, was a bit of a trickster. He cheated death multiple times, made enemies of some powerful gods, and generally was not the kind of dude you'd invite for a polite tea party. Zeus, king of Olympus, finally had enough and decided it was cosmic payback time. Sisyphus' punishment? You guessed it. Pushing a rock uphill forever. Now, this isn't your average rock, and that's not your average hill. We're talking a boulder so massive it crushes ambition. On a slope so steep, even mountain goats would say, nope. And just when Sisyphus thinks he's almost there, that darn boulder gains a mind of its own, rolls back down, and he starts from square one. And talk about the ultimate exercise in futility. Now here's where things get interesting. The French philosopher Albert Camus found something strangely inspiring in this story. Imagine waking up every day knowing you're doomed to fail, but Sisyphus keeps pushing. Camus argued it's in that act of defiant struggle, even with no hope of success, that Sisyphus finds a strange kind of freedom. It's his way of giving a big middle finger to the absurdity of life. But what does it all mean? Is Sisyphus a tragic figure, forever enslaved to a meaningless task? Or is he a quiet hero finding a sense of purpose in the struggle itself? Maybe the point is that it's up to us to decide. After all, we're all pushing our own boulders up our own hills. What keeps you going when the struggle seems endless? Well, think about it and let me know if you want. But that's our story about Sisyphus, and next we're gonna talk about the man who could turn anything he touches to gold. Literally. We're talking about King Midas next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Ever wished you could strike it rich with a snap of your fingers? Well, hold on to your wallets, because today we're uncovering the cautionary tale of King Midas, a man whose greedy wish turned into a glittering nightmare. King Midas was a pretty decent ruler, but the guy had a serious obsession with gold, like more obsessed than a dragon hoarding treasure. So as luck would have it, he gets a visit from Dionysus, party god extraordinaire. Feeling generous, Dionysus offers Midas one wish, no strings attached. Bad move, Dionysus. Now, you'd think Midas would wish for, well, more gold, right? Nope. This guy went for the full body upgrade. He wished for the power to turn everything he touched into gold. Cue the triumphant music. Well, that cuts out abruptly as utter chaos takes over. Imagine Midas, ecstatic, touching random things: a chair, gold; a goblet, gold; his beloved cat, golden statue that no longer purrs. Oops. Well, things even take a dark turn when dinner time rolls around. Bread, gold; juicy grapes, shiny, indelible nuggets. Even his own daughter, with a single hug, freezes into a beautiful but lifeless statue. Realizing he's made a terrible mistake, Midas begs Dionysus to reverse the wish. Luckily, the god is both forgiving and probably a bit amused. He tells Midas to bathe in the river Pactolus, washing away the cursed power. Midas rushes off, the river shimmering gold in his wake. The story leaves us with a whopper of a question. What do we really value in life? Is a mountain of riches worth more than a simple meal, the warmth of human touch, or the vibrant world around us? Remember, sometimes the greatest treasures aren't the ones that glitter. Think about that, my friends, but don't think for long, because next we're going to talk about Actaeon and when curiosity becomes a curse. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever stumbled into a situation and thought, uh-oh, maybe I shouldn't be here? Turns out that's nothing compared to the predicament Actaeon, an avid hunter, found himself in. Let's just say he picked the wrong day to take a shortcut through the woods. Actaeon was minding his own business, tracking wild game, when he heard the most enchanting sounds of splashing water and feminine laughter. Curiosity, that sneaky little devil, took over. He crept closer, potting the bushes, and oh boy did he regret it. Because there, surrounded by her nymphs, bathed Artemis, goddess of the hunt and sworn defender of her privacy, which, in retrospect, maybe Actaeon should have considered. Now, Artemis wasn't known for her chill vibes. Furious at being spied upon, she decided to teach Actaeon a transformative lesson. With a splash of water and some mystical words, his fate was sealed. Antlers sprouted from his head, his body contorted, and suddenly, this master hunter found himself on the other side of the bow. He was now a majestic stag. Bad enough, right? Well, the story takes an even more tragic turn. Actaeon's own loyal hunting hounds, no longer recognizing their master, caught his scent and descended upon him. Imagine the confusion, the terror of being hunted by your own pack. The tale of Actaeon raises questions about boundaries, both literal and figurative. Did he deserve such a harsh fate for his curiosity? Does the power of a goddess, however justified her anger, outweigh Actaeon's life? It's a harsh reminder that sometimes the unknown is best left undisturbed. Or else you might end up more than just staggered by the consequences. Well, think about that. And of course, the beauty of these stories is that they make you think about things that are happening to you in your own lives. We're not only talking about Greek mythology, friends. I might have fooled you at the beginning by telling you that these are great stories from mythology, but there's much more to them than meet the eye. And next, we're going to talk about the one and only Hera, Queen of the Gods. But she's not only the Queen of the Gods, she's the Queen of the Grudge, actually. And that's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Now, picture this. You're married to the most powerful being in existence, the king of the gods himself. Sounds awesome, right? Well, unless your name is Hera, queen of Olympus, it's actually a recipe for cosmic-sized drama. Why? Because her hubby, Zeus, has the attention span of a goldfish and an unfortunate habit of falling in love with basically anyone who breathes. Hera, bless her heart, was not the type to put up with that kind of nonsense. She possessed a kind of anger the gods themselves feared. Let's be real. If scorn and jealousy were Olympic sports, she'd win gold every single time. But Hera wasn't satisfied with just fuming on her throne. Oh no, she went full-on revenge mode. Take Io, for example. Poor girl was just minding her own business when Zeus decided she was his latest must-have. To hide his tracks, he turned her into a cow. Unfortunately for Io, Hera wasn't fooled. She tormented the cow with an eternally stinging gadfly, forcing her to wander the earth in misery. Hera even took the aim at the children born from Zeus's escapades. Hercules? Yeah, that's Hera's stepson, and she made his life a living 12 labors. She unleashed snakes, plots, and poisoned tunics, all because she couldn't take it out on her philandering husband. The wrath of Hera is a force of nature within Greek mythology. But here's a question that makes you squirm a bit. Does Hera deserve our sympathy, or does she become a villain in her own right? Can you blame her for taking action, or does her relentless vengeance cross a line? Well, think about that, my friends, and of course, as always, you can share what you think with me. But now moving on to Athens. And here we're gonna talk about whether it's a city of olives or salty seas. You'll know what I mean if you stick around, because that's what we're going to talk about next. Don't go anywhere. Have you ever been involved in a rivalry? A friendly one, perhaps, the kind where you and your best mate compete to see who can eat the spiciest food or who can tell the scariest story. Well, imagine that, but on the scale of literal gods. That's basically how things got down between Athena and Poseidon. Let me paint a picture. There's this beautiful, up-and-coming city on mainland Greece. Think stunning architecture, vibrant people, all the makings of a real powerhouse. Naturally, the gods of Olympus start circling like vultures, well, fancy immortal ones. Two take the spotlight. Athena, goddess of wisdom, warfare, and kick-ass craftsmanship, and Poseidon, god of seas, earthquakes, and horses. Now, let's just say personalities clash. Both these deities think, yep, that city would be way cooler with my name on it. Zeus, king of the gods and master of the let's see how this plays out approach, decides to settle things once and for all with a contest. Whoever gives the humans of this city the most awesome gift is the undisputed winner. Poseidon, the flashy type, struts up first. With a mighty strike of his trident, boom, a spring appears on the Acropolis. A big honking hill right in the heart of the city. Now, water is a valuable resource, but it's salt water, as in not suitable for drinking or watering crops. Practicality was never Poseidon's strongest suit. Athena, even the strategist, takes a different route. She plants a seed, that's it. But from this seed grows something the city truly needs, an olive tree. Food, oil for lamps and cooking, wood. Athena basically offers them an ancient Mediterranean supermarket. The people are sold, Athena's the winner, and Poseidon gets to sulk back to the ocean. The city gets a fitting name, Athens, in honor of the goddess, of course. Even today, olive trees are a staple in Greece. Athena's gift became woven into the very fabric of their society. So here's the question. Do you side with flash or function? Would you have preferred salt water and a show, or the long-term benefits of the humble olive tree? Well, remember that you might be choosing this very thing, of course not exactly the same, nowadays, between something flashy or something functional. And I bet that you sometimes choose the flashy one. So, think again. Would you choose the saltwater spectacle or the humble olive tree? Think about it and let me know what you think. But next, we're gonna move to the realm of love. A love in the shadows, the story of Psyche and Eros. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Now picture this. You've fallen madly in love, but there's a catch. You can never actually see your partner. Sound wild? Welcome to the world of Psyche and Eros. Psyche, a princess with beauty so staggering it rivaled even Aphrodite's, made the goddess of beauty herself see red with jealousy. Aphrodite, never one to take a slight gracefully, schemed to have Psyche marry a hideous monster. But plot twist, Aphrodite's own son Eros, the mischievous god of love, ends up head over heels for Psyche himself. Eros whisks Psyche off to a luxurious palace filled with whispers and invisible servants. Every night they meet in darkness, their love growing deeper. Sounds too good to be true. Well, it kinda is. The catch is, Psyche must never, ever try to see Eros' true form. But sisters are the worst, aren't they? Psyche's nosy siblings convince her that she's actually married to a terrifying beast. Overcome by curiosity, one fateful night she holds an oil lamp over the sleeping Eros. Surprise, it's the most gorgeous god she's ever seen. A startled drop of oil wakes him, and in a flash of anger and betrayal, he vanishes. Heartbroken Psyche is left with a colossal mess to clean up. Aphrodite, not missing a chance to torment, sets her impossible tasks. Psyche sorts mountains of grain, collects dangerous wool, even goes into the underworld itself, all with hope flickering that she might win Eros back. Against all odds, Psyche's devotion doesn't waver. Even Zeus, the big boss on Mount Olympus, is moved by her courage. Eros, realizing his mistake, heals from his burns. Oh, you know how lamp oil can really mess you up, and they reunite. Psyche's even granted immortality. The love story gets its happy ending, but with a twist. So the question lingers. Could you love someone deeply without ever seeing their true form? Would trust win out over doubt, or would curiosity destroy everything? Think about it, my friends. Again, don't think for long, because next we're going to talk about Medusa. Is she a monster, or is she misunderstood? Well, let's talk about that next. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Imagine having the worst hair day of all time, like a seriously bad hair day. Now multiply that by 1,000 and throw in venomous snakes for good measure. Well, that's Medusa's deal, one of the most infamous figures in Greek mythology. But here's the thing, was she always the terrifying monster of legend? Well, it turns out Medusa was born a Gorgon. She used to be a stunning priestess in Athena's temple. So stunning, in fact, that Poseidon, god of the seas, just couldn't resist. Whether the situation was consensual or not depends on the version of the story you hear. Either way, Athena is furious. See, priestesses are supposed to be celibate, and messing around in her temple is a huge no-no. Instead of punishing Poseidon, God's gonna God, I guess, Athena lays the full weight of her wrath on poor Medusa. Her beautiful hair transformed into a writhing nest of snakes, and worst, she's gifted with a gaze that turns those who meet her eyes to stone. We'll talk about a cursed makeover. Exiled to a desolate island, Medusa becomes the hunted rather than the hunter. All alone, she's basically the ancient Greek version of Bigfoot. Only instead of blurry photos, she leaves a trail of statues. Along comes Perseus, a hero with a quest to complete and a score to settle. Using a polished shield like a mirror, he sneaks up on Medusa. Well, you know how the story ends. But let's think about this. Was Medusa actually the villain? Was she a victim of double standards, blamed for a god's misconduct? And what if that chilling ability to turn men to stone was less a curse and more an act of self-defense? Could the story of Medusa be a cautionary tale about the destructive power of unchecked anger and blame? Well, think about that. And my friend, I would love you to relate those things to real-life stories. If you do that, I'd be very happy, of course, because that's exactly why we're talking about Greek mythology in the first place. Well, the stories are great, I know, but they're stories we can drag morals from, we can drag lessons from, and think about those lessons in our daily lives. And I bet that we have a lot of Medusas, we have a lot of Perseuses, we have a lot of Athenas in our lives. Think about it and you will find them. But again, don't think for long, because next we're going to talk about Ganymede, the one who was kidnapped to Olympus. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Ever heard the phrase swept off your feet? Well, in ancient Greece, sometimes that happened literally. If you were really, really good looking and caught the eye of, you know who, Zeus, case in point, the story of Ganymede. Ganymede was a Trojan prince. Not just a handsome face, but known for being the most beautiful mortal alive. Imagine the glow up after being whisked away to live with the gods. He's chilling out with his sheep one day when, bam, down swoops a giant eagle, snatching him off the ground. That eagle wasn't after a tasty lamb, it was Zeus, the king of the gods, in disguise. Up on Mount Olympus, land of the glamorous and immortal, Ganymede ditches sheep for goblets. You see, Zeus had a bit of a vacancy. Hebe, goddess of youth, and his personal cupbearer got married. Scandalous. Ganymede slides right into the position, serving ambrosia, the drink of the gods, at all their fancy parties. We'll talk about a career change. But hold on a minute. Was Ganymede's life in the clouds a blessing or a curse? Zeus was notorious for, well, let's say he wasn't great at respecting boundaries. Was this a sweet deal or just another kind of gilded cage? And how did his dad, the king of Troy, feel about his son being literally stolen from his life? Well, it makes you wonder, would you trade the world you know for a life of luxury on Mount Olympus? And you know which Mount Olympus I'm talking about, don't call me crazy. You know those Mount Olympuses that are all around us, would you? Would you trade the world you know for a life of luxury on Mount Olympus, even if that luxury comes complete with a side of divine drama? Well, think about it, my friends, and let me know what you think. But again, don't think for long, because next we're gonna talk about the tragic tale of Niobe, when pride becomes your downfall. That's coming next, don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Have you ever bragged about being the best at something and wished you could take it back? Well, Niobe, Queen of Thebes, is about to learn a very harsh lesson in humility. Niobe was living her best life. Loving husband? Check. Powerful kingdom? Check. A whopping 14 healthy children, 7 sons, 7 daughters? That's mom goals right there. But Niobe wasn't content. She decided to take her bragging to the next level. During a festival honoring Leto, mother of the twin gods Apollo and Artemis, Niobe pulls a classic Karen move. She gets up in front of everyone and starts boasting that she's way more blessed than Leto. You know, because 14 kids are obviously better than 2. The crowd gasps. This lady just dissed a goddess to her face. Leto, surprisingly, doesn't go nuclear on the spot, but her kids are having none of it. Apollo, the god of archery, and Artemis, the fierce huntress, descend in a flash of godly fury. With merciless precision, their arrows take down Niobe's children one by one. Imagine the screams, the chaos, an entire generation wiped out in the blink of an eye. Niobe is utterly shattered. Hubris crumbles into despair as she witnesses her beautiful family destroyed. Zeus, in a rare act of pity, turns her to stone. Even her tears, the myth says, continue to flow as an eternal waterfall. So here's the question. Was Niobe's punishment deserved, or did the gods go too far? And have you ever seen someone's arrogance lead to their downfall? I'm sure you have. And you might remember a couple of stories that you want to share with me. But my friends, we're going to talk next about Tantalus, the original tease of the ancient world. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever been so close to getting what you want only to have it snatched away at the last second? Well, imagine that feeling dialed up to 11 and then frozen time for eternity. That, my friends, is the special kind of torture endured by Tantalus in the underworld. Tantalus, a king favored by the gods themselves, got invited to the most exclusive parties on Mount Olympus. Imagine the stories he could have told. But instead of gratitude, Tantalus gets greedy. And a little too big for his britches, he started spilling divine secrets and even attempts to steal ambrosia, the food of the gods. Well, that's basically the ancient Greek equivalent of hacking into a top-secret government database and then trying to run off with classified alien technology. Not a smart move, buddy. His ultimate crime, however, was far more sinister. This guy decides to test the gods by inviting them over for dinner and serving them a dish made from, well, let's just say it involved his own son. Zeus and the gang were not amused at all. Cue the doom music. For these unspeakable crimes, Tantalus is hurled into Tartarus, the deepest, darkest pit of the underworld. His punishment? Well, picture this. He's eternally chin-deep in a pool of crystal-clear water with a beautiful fruit tree dangling juicy branches overhead. But every time he reaches for a drink, the water recedes. Every time he goes for a bite of fruit, the branches sway upwards just beyond his grasp. Well, this is the ultimate cosmic tease, perpetual, agonizingly close to quenching his thirst and hunger, but never able to actually do so. Ouch. So let's think about this. Was Tantalus' punishment justified? Especially in a world where gods weren't always the most moral bunch themselves? And can you imagine a worse torment than having what you desire always placed just out of reach? Well, think about that, my friends, and let me know. And next, we're gonna talk about Atlas, the titan who held up the world. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Ever felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders? Now imagine it literally. That's the deal for poor Atlas, the titan who got stuck on permanent sky-holding duty. The story goes back to the Titanomachy, that epic clash between the titans and the Olympic gods. Atlas, as one of the titan leaders, fought on the losing side. Zeus, ever the dramatic one, wasn't content with just throwing Atlas in cosmic jail. He had to make it theatrical. So Atlas gets condemned to stand on the edge of the known world, which was a lot smaller back then, and hoist the entire sky on his shoulders. Now talk about a bad work assignment. Well, some versions even say it's the whole Earth he's holding up. But regardless of which celestial body it is a task of impossible strength and immeasurable endurance. Now Atlas does get a few cameos in other myths. Heracles, well, that's Hercules to the Romans, convinces him to fetch some golden apples for one of those 12 labors. Atlas gets a brief break while Heracles figures out the whole sky-holding thing. But don't worry, because Atlas gets tricked back into position eventually. But here's where it gets interesting. Was Atlas simply a victim of circumstance, caught in a war he didn't start, or did his actions earn him this eternal punishment? And can you imagine the sheer fortitude, both physical and mental, to carry that kind of weight day in and day out for eternity? Well, think about it, my friends. But again, don't think for long, because next we're going to talk about the ancient version of Romeo and Juliet, Pyramus and Thisbe, the original star-crossed lovers. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Have you ever had a super strict parent who just didn't understand your need to text your crush 24/7? Well, meet Pyramus and Thisbe. Sweethearts with a situation even worse than yours. Rival families who forbade their love entirely. Imagine Romeo and Juliet, but set in ancient Babylon. Those two lovebirds lived in connected houses and, unable to meet in person, resorted to whispering sweet nothings through a crack in the wall. We'll talk about dedication. It gets even more dramatic. They hatch a plan to escape their families and rendezvous under a mulberry tree. Thisbe arrives first, but wait, there's a lioness, its mouth stained with blood from a recent kill. Terrified, Thisbe flees, accidentally dropping her veil. Pyramus shows up later, spots the veil and the lion's bloody tracks. Oh no! He assumes the worst, that Thisbe's become a tragic snack, and in utter despair stabs himself with his own sword. Returning to the mulberry tree, Thisbe finds her beloved dying. Heartbroken, she falls on his sword, their blood forever staining the white mulberries a deep crimson. Ouch! Even their parents, finally witnessing their tragic love, are moved, burying them together. So here's the question. Have you ever acted impulsively out of desperation, only to have it backfire spectacularly? And how far would you go for a forbidden love? And I would like also to throw in a question for parents as well. Have you ever thought before about putting yourself in your children's shoes and feel those things and try to deal with whatever disaster you think it is in a different way, just to avoid a tragic end to that story? course, it doesn't have to be with swords and stuff or lions, but you know what I mean. Well, think about it and let me know. But my friends, next we're going to talk about another story. Also has to do with dying for love. And actually, the question is, would you die for love? Well, we're going to talk about the heartbreaking tale of Admetus and Alcestis. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Imagine being given a stark choice, your life or the life of the person you love most. That's the impossible ultimatum facing Admetus, king of Pherae. You see, Admetus had a little loophole in his fate. He gets told he's going to die young unless someone's willing to take his place. Admetus is popular, but not that popular. Friends, family, even his elderly parents, everyone gives a resounding thanks, but no thanks. Then come Alcestis, his devoted wife. Without hesitation, she steps forward and pledges her life for his. It's the ultimate act of selfless love. Now, you'd think the gods would applaud this, but nope. Death arrives, sweeps up Alcestis, and descends into the gloomy underworld. Admetus is devastated. He realizes too late that his life without Alcestis is hollow and meaningless. Luckily for everyone, in true Greek mythology fashion, a beefy, semi-divine hero happens to be passing through. Yep, it's our boy Heracles, or Hercules. Hercules, touched by the story and possibly slightly tipsy, decided to arm wrestle death itself for Alcestis' life, and wins. Alcestis returns, and with a bit of cosmic drama, their love story gets back on track. So, here's the question to think about. Could you ever imagine sacrificing yourself for someone you love? And what lengths would you go to in order to get back someone you lost? Well, think about it, my friends. Don't think for long, because next we're going to talk about the bizarre founding of Thebes. From dragon teeth to a mighty city. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever gotten directions so weird you questioned your sanity? Well, that's nothing compared to what Cadmus, a Phoenician prince, went through. See, his sister Europa got kidnapped by Zeus disguised as a bull. Well, you know, classic Zeus move. And Dad sends Cadmus to find her. No pressure, right? Now, off he goes, but no sign of Europa. Frustrated, he seeks out the always cryptic Oracle of Delphi. The instructions? Ditch the sister, follow a special cow, and build a city where she stops. Okay, well, not exactly Google Maps, folks, but Cadmus does as he's told. This magical bovine eventually plops down in Boeotia, which appropriately means cow land. Cadmus decides to sacrifice the cow to the gods, but to do that, he needs water. He sends his men to a nearby spring where they promptly get eaten by a monstrous serpent. That's one way to solve a water shortage, I guess. Now, here's where it gets truly wild. Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare, tells Cadmus to sow the serpent's teeth in the ground. He does, and fully armed warriors sprout from the soil. Naturally, they fight each other until only 5 remain. The Spartoi, Thebes' first noble family. Cadmus ends up serving Ares, the war god, as penance for the dragon situation. After that, he finally gets to rule Thebes, introduces them to the alphabet, and generally turns the place into a major powerhouse. Now here's the question. Would you follow such bizarre instructions, even when facing near-death situations? Could you build something great from such a chaotic beginning? Well, think about that, my friends. But again, don't think for long, because we're gonna talk about the dark side of Medea next. We're gonna talk about love and fury. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever been so heartbroken, so consumed by rage, you wanted to burn everything to the ground? Well, Medea, sorceress and princess, knows that feeling all too well. This isn't just a breakup story. It's an epic tale of betrayal and vengeance that'll leave you seriously rethinking marriage vows. Medea famously helped Jason, a dashing hero, nab the Golden Fleece. But she abandons her family, employs some seriously dark magic, and even chops up her own brother to slow down the chase. All in the name of love. Or so she thought. They get hitched, have a couple of kids, and life is good. Until Jason starts eyeing a politically advantageous marriage to the Princess of Corinth. Talk about being traded in. Medea, understandably, is not having it. And here's where the understandable part ends, folks. Scorned and furious, Medea doesn't just scream or throw his stuff out a window. She concocts a truly horrifying revenge plot. First comes the poisoned dress and crown for the princess, a fiery and fatal surprise. But it gets worse. Medea, in the most chilling act, murders her own children with Jason to deny him any legacy. Her escape? A dragon-drawn chariot sent by her grandfather Helios, the sun god. And yeah, family reunions after that must have been awkward. The story of Medea is brutally tragic, so the question is, can heartbreak ever justify such extreme actions? And how far can fury drive a person before they lose themselves completely? And my friends, you might have experienced that before, maybe not, I hope not. But fury, if you let it rule you, it really leads to dark places you will definitely regret. So think about that, think about Medea and what happened to her children, to the one she loved. Now granted, he doesn't deserve her love because he kind of betrayed her love. I know that, but did her children deserve it? Did she herself deserve that fate? Think about it and let me know what you think. But next, we're gonna talk about Zeus's worst headache ever. The explosive birth of Athena. That's coming next, don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Have you ever had a thought so powerful it felt like your brain might explode? Well, Zeus, king of the gods, took that to a whole other level with the most unique birth story in mythology. The day Athena sprang from his skull. The story goes like this. Zeus, being Zeus, hears a prophecy that his wise consort, Metis, will birth a son destined to overthrow him. His solution? Not therapy, but rather swallowing Metis whole. Problem solved, right? Well, wrong. Months later, Zeus is struck with a splitting headache that makes migraines feel like a gentle tickle. No aspirin could touch this as well. Desperate, he calls for Hephaestus, the blacksmith god, who takes one look and goes, "Dude, I think you need a little more than Tylenol." With a mighty blow of his axe, Hephaestus splits Zeus' head wide open, and out pops Athena. Not as a baby, mind you, but fully grown, clad in gleaming armor and brandishing a spear. We'll talk about a dramatic entrance. So that was the story of the birth of Athena, of course, but here's the question. Can wisdom be born from such a strange and potentially destructive act? And what does this bizarre birth story say about the relationship between knowledge, power, and even a touch of parental paranoia? Well, think about it, my friends, and let me know. But don't think for long, because next we're going to talk about the epic journey of Aeneas. If you want to know, don't go anywhere, because I'll be right back to talk about the epic journey of Aeneas. Imagine your city burning to the ground, your whole world crumbling around you. Would you have the courage to escape the ruins and forge a new destiny? Well, that's the tale of Aeneas, Trojan warrior turned legendary founder of Rome. The story goes back to the Trojan War. Aeneas, son of the goddess Aphrodite, fights bravely against the Greeks, but the gods have basically bet on the wrong horse. When Troy falls in a fiery spectacle, Aeneas carries his elderly father on his back and leads his young son and a few survivors away from the burning city. But Aeneas' journey was no smooth sailing vacation cruise. Shipwrecks, monsters, a detour into the underworld, as one usually does. Well, this guy had it all. Even his romance with Dido, queen of Carthage, ends in tragedy and heartbreak. Fate, it seems, was determined to test his resilience. Guided by prophecies and duty, Aeneas endures it all. Finally, he reaches Italy, fights a war against the locals, and lays the foundation for what will become the mighty Roman Empire. Now, I bet you want to learn a lot more about Aeneas and his story because it's such an interesting story, of course. But of course, as I told you, we just talk about the gist of the stories and we kind of discuss their meanings. But if you want to learn about the entire story, let me know. And maybe even we'll talk about the book itself, the Aeneid by Virgil. But let's get back to this very short version of the story. And let me end it with my question to you. Where do you find the strength to carry on when everything familiar is lost? Can a new beginning ever truly erase the scars of the past? I'm sure a lot of you understand exactly what I'm talking about. I understand it myself. And that happened to me many times. And I'm still here. What about you guys? Think about it. Learn from these great stories. Now, I hope by the end of this episode, you will love Greek mythology, not because they're beautiful stories, because they are, of course, but because they are deep stories. These stories really touch us as humans, even today in the 21st century. Well, think about it, my friends, and let me know what you think. I would love to learn from you. But that's it about our friend Aeneas. Next, we're going to talk about the story of Daphne and Apollo. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Have you ever been so annoyed by someone's attention that you wished you could just vanish into thin air? Well, meet Daphne, a nymph who took that sentiment a bit too literally. Daphne was everything Apollo, god of music and light, found attractive. Beautiful, wild, and absolutely devoted to running free in the forest as a follower of Artemis, the huntress goddess. Apollo, on the other hand, had the emotional maturity of a teenage boy pumped full of godly hormones. Well, let's just say subtlety wasn't his strong suit. One look at Daphne and Apollo was smitten. Daphne, not so much. She wanted nothing to do with this flashy god and his amorous intentions. And so begins one seriously unequal chase scene. Daphne races through the woods, desperately praying for escape, while Apollo relentlessly pursues her, whispering promises and sweet nothings that fall on deaf ears. Just as Apollo is about to catch her, Daphne's father, a river god, comes to the rescue. With a flash, she transforms into a beautiful laurel tree. Heartbroken, Apollo can only reach out to touch the smooth bark and rustling leaves. He vows to honor her forever, adopting the laurel as his sacred symbol. So here's the thought. Is transformation a form of escape or a kind of freedom? And how far would you go to maintain your own independence? Well, think about yourselves, think about your lives, think about the transformations you can give to yourself, not to flee someone or anything, but maybe to flee this prison that you feel is kind of closing in on you. Think about it, my friends. But don't think for long, because next we're going to talk about Cassandra, the curse of unheeded truth. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Well, imagine having the power to see the future, but nobody ever believes a word you say. Ouch. Well, welcome to the tragic world of Cassandra, my friends, a Trojan princess blessed with prophecy, but cursed with utter disbelief. The backstory involves Cassandra touching the eye of Apollo, god of light and prophecy. He offers her the gift of foresight in a classic strings-attached god move. The catch? She has to, reciprocate. Cassandra accepts, gets the power, then swiftly rejects Apollo's advances. Furious and petty, Apollo can't revoke the gift, so he spits a curse. Cassandra will still see the future, but her words will fall on deaf ears. Think of her as the ancient Greek version of that one friend whose warnings you ignore until it's far too late. Cassandra sees the Trojan horse for what it is, foresees the destruction it will cause. She warns her father, the king, her people. They all think she's gone mad. And well, you know how the Trojan War ends. Cassandra's dragged from Athena's temple during the sack of Troy, and her life spirals further into darkness and enslavement. So let's think about this. Is it better to know a terrible future, even if you can't stop it, or to be blissfully ignorant of the danger ahead? And how far can bitterness and wounded pride drive someone, even a god? And let's think about Cassandra's deal with Apollo. I mean, it's not exactly a deal with the devil or something like that, but it's kind of close. And Apollo was straightforward. He wanted something in return. He wanted her. And she knew exactly if she accepted, she would have to reciprocate. She would have to honor her end of the deal. So she kind of deceived Apollo. But maybe what Apollo did was truly cruel. He could have done something else. I don't know. You decide. And maybe you will have to put yourself in Cassandra's shoes when you sometimes have a chance to accept something very valuable. Maybe not exactly the ability to prophesize or to see the future, but any kind of thing, maybe money, maybe a position or something else, but it comes with strings attached. You have to give something back. You have to reciprocate. Maybe not exactly what Apollo wanted from Cassandra, but maybe something else. Something even worse, who knows? Would you take it and then try to chew your leg out of that bear trap or something? Well, it doesn't work well for you. because the other party is usually strong enough to crush you. And the last question here, why would you even bother? Why would you want to make a deal with such a person? Anyway, think about it, but not for long, because next we're gonna talk about a scandalous love triangle in Olympus. Well, when God's behaving badly, that's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Now, ever had your nosy neighbor catch you in an embarrassing moment? Well, now multiply that by 1,000, add in a dash of divine revenge, and you've got the sizzling scandal of Aphrodite, Ares, and Hephaestus. Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, was married to Hephaestus, the blacksmith god. Well, let's just say it wasn't a match made in heaven. Hephaestus was brilliant, but not exactly heartthrob material. Enter Ares, the brash and impulsive war god. Aphrodite couldn't resist his charms, and soon the two were inseparable. Well, as inseparable as you can be while your husband is hammering away in the forge, that is. But gossip spreads fast. Even on Mount Olympus, Helios, the sun god, sees everything and spills the beans to Hephaestus. Furious and humiliated, Hephaestus doesn't just yell or throw things, he goes full mad scientist genius. He crafts an unbreakable, nearly invisible net designed to ensnare the cheating lovers in the act. The next time Ares sneaks over, the trap is sprung. He and Aphrodite are caught literally in a very compromising position. To add insult to injury, Hephaestus invites all the gods to come and witness the spectacle. Well, you can imagine the godly gossip that followed. So the question, does public humiliation count as justifiable revenge? And would you rather be beautiful and desired or skilled and resourceful? Well, these are two questions, but I guess that nobody cares about the second question as much as you care about the first question. Because at sometimes, maybe you were not exactly cheated on, but maybe something close, who knows? I hope not, but would you do something like that? I mean, wouldn't you just leave her? I mean, wouldn't you just tell her, just go, you and your lover Ares, just do whatever you want. I don't want anything to do with you, that's it. No, I want a scandal. Are you the type that want a scandal? Well, think about that, my friends. But don't think for long, because we still have a couple of stories left. We still have the story of Atalanta and the birth of the Muses, and we're done for our 40 great stories from Greek mythology. Don't go anywhere. Next, we're going to talk about the story of Atalanta. I'll be right back. Have you ever wished you could outrun your problems? Well, meet Atalanta, a fierce huntress whose speed wasn't just about sport, it was about survival. Abandoned as a baby, then raised by a she-bear. Well, talk about unusual childhoods. Atalanta grew up strong, cunning, and with a deep distrust of men. To avoid marriage, which is a common destiny for women of the time, she made a crazy declaration. Any suitor would have to beat her in a foot race. Lose, and it was a death sentence. Yeah, she meant business. Atalanta was lightning fast, and plenty of men paid the ultimate price for their foolishness. Along came Hippomenes, smitten as a kitten. Now, he wasn't dumb. He prayed to Aphrodite for help, and the goddess tossed him 3 irresistible golden apples. During the race, Hippomenes strategically dropped the apples, distracting Atalanta's focus. He won by a hair, claiming Atalanta as his bride. Well, sounds like a happy ending, right? Wrong. The pair forgot to properly thank Aphrodite, who, never one to take disrespect lightly, curses them, fueling them with lust that leads them to desecrate a temple. Zeus, in his godly outrage, turns them both into lions. So here's the thing. Can you truly outrun fate, or was Atalanta's defiant spirit always destined for such a wild end? And can even the greatest gifts lead to your downfall if you forget the importance of gratitude? Well, think about that, my friends. But don't think for long, because we're left with our very last story in our very special episode of 40 Great Stories from Greek Mythology. We're going to talk about the birth of the Muses. But trust me when I tell you this, there are still a lot of other stories that I want to tell you about from Greek mythology. And I could even talk for hours about that, because they're just great stories. And maybe we will have part 2, who knows? If you like it, if you want a part 2, tell me about it. Let me know. Or if you want something from other mythologies, like Celtic mythology or Egyptian mythology, or maybe Chinese and Japanese mythologies, etc. You know, I love mythology. I would definitely oblige. Just let me know if you want that. But for now, let's move on to our very last story for today's episode. And we're going to talk about the birth of the Muses, when gods get creative. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Ever felt that burst of inspiration? That spark that makes you want to write, paint, or even sing? Thank the muses. These 9 sisters weren't just divine party guests. They were the embodiment of creativity itself. Their story begins with, who else? Zeus. The king of the god had a 9-night fling with Mnemosyne, the titaness of memory. Well, 9 nights, 9 daughters, you can easily do the math. These weren't your typical toddlers though. From day one, they burst into song, their voices echoing through the halls of Olympus. Each muse had her own domain. There was Calliope for epic poetry, Erato for love poems, Thalia for comedy. You get the idea. They were the ultimate inspiration squad. Mortals who caught their favor would go on to create timeless art, songs, and stories. And you might ask, where did they hang out? Where Mount Helicon, with its sacred springs, was their favorite spot to dance, sing, and generally get the creative juices flowing. But sometimes they popped down to Olympus to entertain the gods during those long ambrosia-fueled banquets. Think of them as the cosmic influencers of the ancient world. So here's my question for you, my friends. Do you believe inspiration comes from a divine source, or is it something we conjure from within? And what artistic endeavor would you pursue if one of the muses tapped you on the shoulder? Well, think about it, and please share what you think with me. I would love to learn from you. But with that, my friends, we come to the end of our episode for today. As our journey through the realm of Greek mythology draws to a close, we find ourselves reflecting on the myriad wonders we have encountered along the way. From the dawn of creation to the twilight of the gods, each story has left an indelible mark on our hearts and minds, reminding us of the enduring power of myth and the timeless truths it conveys. Through these tales, we have witnessed the triumph of courage over adversity, the folly of hubris, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. We have marveled at the feats of legendary heroes, mourned the tragic fates of star-crossed lovers, and trembled at the wrath of vengeful deities. And in each narrative, we have glimpsed echoes of our own hopes, fears, and dreams. For the stories of Greek mythology are not merely relics of a bygone age, but mirrors reflecting the universal truths of the human experience. Now, as we bid farewell to this enchanted realm, let us carry with us the lessons learned and the wisdom gained from our journey. Let us remember the timeless values of honor, compassion, and perseverance that have illuminated our path, and let us draw strength from the enduring legacy of those who came before us. Though our journey may be ending, my friends, the magic of Greek mythology will continue to inspire and enchant generations to come, reminding us of the boundless power of storytelling to transcend time and space. And so, as we take our leave of this mythical realm, may we carry its stories in our hearts forevermore, and may they continue to guide and inspire us on our own epic adventures yet to come. Farewell, dear travelers, and may the tales of Greek mythology continue to ignite the fires of imagination in all who dare to dream. This was your host, Danny. Thank you very much for listening to another special episode and another premium episode from English Plus Podcast. I will see you next time.